Hi, Stories Channel here.
And today we're going to take a look at the 2019 thriller movie, called The Other Lamb. The film flips with the depiction of a girl drowning in the deepest water. But later, we see two other girls clad in blue robes, sitting beside a beautiful waterfall. They tease each other for a while and then return. The camera then flips through a forested community inhabited by women only. The older women wear pink clothes while the younger girls wear blue robes. They all continue with their regular routines and the camera then shows us the protagonist, who's a beautiful blue-eyed girl. She stares into the distance where a man watches her while standing among the trees. The next scene shows us the man having dinner with all the ladies. Blue girls, who are his daughters, on one side of the dining table while the pink, who are his wives, on the other side. He finishes the meal and thanks everyone. Afterwards, he gets up and traces his hands on the backs of each of his wives and selects one of them for himself. He offers her his grace by grabbing her by the neck and she accepts it obediently by referring to him as the shepherd. The next scene pops up where the wives seek prayer from the shepherd and the next morning, they leave his shed one by one. Afterwards, he collects all the ladies in an enclosed forested area and preaches them. He recalls his own favors of how he gave them food, shelter and protection. Meanwhile, the blue-eyed girl named Salah watches him completely entranced. Afterwards, he sacrifices a lamb and uses its blood to mark all of the women's faces as they all surround him and cry in sheer respect, ambiance for him. Later, we witness the shepherd waiting for Salah and he takes her on a walk among the woods. As they talk with each other, the shepherd starts complimenting her and plays with her hair while stating that it's just like her mother. Upon that, Salah demands to know the story of what happened to her mother, but the shepherd doesn't reveal anything and walks away, leaving Salah smiling shyly. The next scene pops up in a hut where a new wife talks about the shepherd's charming personality, while Salah and her sister listen to her. Upon hearing the embellished words, Salah taunts the new wife, which enrages her sister and they both start fighting. The other girl brings her mother into this, which makes Salah go away and take the leftover food with her. Following the order, she walks through the woods and on her way, she witnesses a dead bird being eaten away by the insects. With a disgusted look, she starts walking again and climbs to a dark hut where she gives the food to a devastated woman clad in white. The wretched woman warns her that the shepherd won't be so sweet to her when the time comes. After hearing that, Salah leaves and stands by the flowing creek. As the evening falls in, the daughters play in bed and demand to tell a story, upon which her mother states that only the shepherd can tell the stories and nobody else. Afterwards, the mother leaves the little girls in Salah's care until they fall asleep. As they all close their eyes, Salah gazes through the window to the shepherd's shed, where the new wife comes close to him and he inserts his two fingers in her mouth while maintaining eye contact with Salah. The next morning, Salah lays in a field while the camera pans through a pack of sheep, including the lambs and one ram. The scene then shifts to a dark room where the ladies give the shepherd a bath and state that the lambs are going to be arriving soon. At the same time, Salah is given a bath while getting informed that it is her last food and drink. Furthermore, they tell her that she has to witness a lamb giving birth to her young and it's going to be a responsibility for her. Therefore, Salah is seen in the middle of a meadow where she gazes into the open scenery while the lambs graze in the distance. Gradually, she dozes off to sleep and later wakes up under the blistering sun. She staggers down the hill and witnesses the horrifying sight where the lamb lay down breathing unevenly and a hideously skinned baby lay in the grass. In a flurry, Salah screams with all her might and the next scene shows her bleeding through the legs. With her fingers layered with blood, she stands in a complete shock and stares all around her. During the night, she cleans herself once again and climbs into the bed where her sister demands to know what happened to the lambs. Upon that, Salah answers that a wild dog caught the lamb, but in reality, we see her brutally killing it with the knife. Later, she begs the shepherd for mercy and he forgives her. As the morning sun rises, Salah walks out and comes face to face with the ram. As she lowers on the ground and reaches its head, the shepherd watches her closely, while his two wives brush his hair. That same night, Salah wakes up to hear some noise and as she nears the window, she witnesses a policeman talking to the shepherd, stating that he has to move from here very soon. The shepherd agrees and suddenly turns around to see who's peeping at him. Salah immediately hides behind the wall and saves herself. The following morning, the shepherd collects the women and gives them the grievous news that they have to leave the place. After giving them the breaking point, he falls to the ground and all the ladies run to his side, but he just starts laughing and claims that they will find a new home. The ladies become happy and they all lift him up. The women cheer and laugh, all except Salah, who silently walks in the row. The pre-departure scenes now pop up where the shepherd talks to Salah and assures her that they'll find a new place. Furthermore, he motivates her that she's the purest and she needs to be strong. Afterwards, he addresses his whole flock, including the women and the sheep. He gives them the motivation for the journey and they all sing the song. Gradually, they begin their journey and pass through the dense forest to the open fields to end up putting up a camp in the jungle. As they all sit by the fire, Shepherd says grace and they all start devouring the meat. In the meantime, Salah suddenly jolts up from sleep and the camera shows us a woman drowning in the sea once again. At the same time, the shepherd slits a lamb's throat while Salah stands bloodied in her white dress. Nevertheless, they continue their journey for the next day as well until they arrive at a broken building in its worst state. Salah walks into a room to observe the painting of a lake. In the meantime, the shepherd peeps through the door and calls them outside. The night falls in, they camp once again and as Salah sits beside the fire, the shepherd stares at her. Later, she gets up and walks into the house once again where her sister arrives and shows Salah her neck, with red marks on it. The following day, we witness that Salah is retching on a side while the cursed woman named stays by her side. Later on, the girls witness Salah's bleeding so they start calling her impure. Nevertheless, they continue their journey to a place where they settle down due to the overwhelming windstorm. During their camp, Salah talks to the woman named Sarah, who states that she was separated for her vanity. Furthermore, she reveals the truth about Salah's mother that she didn't die by giving birth to her but in reality, she was fine for many days after. Unfortunately, an infection caught up to her but the shepherd didn't take her to the hospital so she expired. Salah listens to this side of the story with utmost astonishment. With that the scene flips to a car where we see a modern Salah traveling with her family. On her way, she observes the shepherd's flock. At the same time, reality springs up as Salah observes the passing car with tears in her eyes. The camera now pans through the bonfire where Salah stares at a pregnant wife. Later, she sits with the broken woman who describes her experiences. She states that at times, she would liberate herself and walk to the waterfall. Standing at that place, she'd undress and experience the freedom of the place. As Salah listens to her intently, a question springs up that why doesn't she leave, upon which the woman simply states that she's afraid. And that night, the barbarism is revealed as the shepherd overcomes her and thrusts his fingers in her mouth until she gags. The following morning, they continue once again and walk across the massive fields and hills. During their adventure, the pregnant woman starts going into labor. She starts crying and screaming in pain. Her sisters support her and try to carry her ahead. The scene then flips to a side where the daughters hug each other in fear while the wife's agonizing shrieks ring through the woods. Unfortunately, we witness that the woman dies during the childbirth and the shepherd orders to burn her body. As everyone stands around in a circle, the broken woman blames the shepherd for the death but he ignores her. Eventually, he takes the beacon and lights up the dead body on fire. The ladies shed tears of grief and sing a song for their demised sister. Later on, they proceed with their journey again and Sarah takes another path with the baby. Upon Salah's inquiry, she states that the shepherd won't allow another boy in the flock. In order to save him, she's taking her own path. Salah bids her goodbye and proceeds with the journey but the women get tired this time. They all sit on the rocks when one woman named Tamar points to something in the distance. But her sense of leadership enrages the shepherd and he starts brutalizing her. The vicious man drags her across the ground and hits her in the stomach. Tears flow down her cheeks but nobody speaks anything and eventually starts following the man once again. After a long walk, they all arrive on the edge of the cliff and beyond it, they witness the breathtaking scenery of the lake. The shepherd calls it the Eden and they all decide to settle in there. After some time, the shepherd gives the daughters his grace by dipping them in the lake. When it's Salah's turn, he holds by the head and gives her a dip which elongates into a permanent dunk. Salah struggles in water as she finds herself drowning towards her death but shepherd pulls her up just in time and lets her leave. Later, the women gather around the fire to eat but the wives state that they're fasting. Therefore, the girls continue to eat and go to sleep. But late at night, the shepherd comes near Salah's tent and invites her out. Salah's sister advises against it but she walks out anyway. As she enters the shepherd's tent, he asks her to unbraid her hair and lie down. She follows his every order and lies down obediently. The man nears her and starts tracing his face against her. After a while of his act, the shepherd pushes his fingers inside her mouth and chokes her. Later, she lays there encapsulated in shock. As the next morning arrives, the daughters get out of their tents and find out that their mothers are missing. They all run to the lake where the shepherd sits beside the lake bed while the wives' robes lay scattered around him. The girls start crying for their mother but the shepherd states that he has cleansed them and given them rebirth. Furthermore, he claims them to be wives now and beckons Salah to come to him so that he can give her the grace. But as Salah advances towards him, she refuses to accept his grace and they both have an exchange of harsh slaps across the faces but Salah stands her ground. With a cutscene of a girl getting strangled underneath the water, The camera pans back to reality where a police officer arrives beside the lake and joins his partner to witness the terrorizing sight of a number of women's dead bodies scattered all around the area. Moving further, they come across the dead body of the shepherd, string up with ropes and the ram horns around his head. The final moments of the film then spring up as we witness all the daughters and Salah standing in front of the waterfall. Salah holds a baby lamb in her arms, and the movie comes to an end. Thanks for watching, guys.